So good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining me here today. I really wish that we could be meeting under better circumstances, but I'm here with the Chief of Police and his top staff, Councilwoman Ellen Robertson. Come on down here, Councilwoman, have a seat. And we're here to talk about some of the challenges that we're facing today and some of the challenges that we have been facing recently. When I brought Chief Tarasova on in February of last year, one of the standards that I set for him was prompt notification. No matter what time of day, no matter what time of night, when there's a major incident of crime in the city, particularly incidents involving children, I wanted to know about it. Over time, I've taken calls at 1 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, at all hours of the day and night. It's horrible to receive these calls when a tragedy has occurred somewhere in our city, but the only thing worse is for the police to have to make the call in the first place to tell me that something tragic has happened in Richmond. And so today I feel that I've been getting far too many phone calls, and that's what I'm here to speak about today. Let me first begin by thanking Chief Tarasova and the men and women of our police force. They do a wonderful job. They are hard at work doing what they do. They're often on the scene of these incidents in less than a minute, and they have a very strong case closing rate, and they've actually improved our overall crime statistic in recent years. And so I need to say that they're doing a fine job, standing for excellence, integrity, and justice. But let me also say that more has got to be done. In February, a 7-year-old was struck by a random bullet. In May, a 5-year-old. This past weekend, a 2-year-old. No child should grow up gathering memories of being shot in their neighborhood. This is unacceptable, and I'm outraged. As a matter of fact, all of us should be outraged. And we've got to recognize that this is not just a policing problem, but this is a community problem. And what I want to do today is to call the community to help us rise up against this kind of behavior. If you see something, we want you to say something. We've got to work on this and combat this together. And I can't stress enough the importance of the community's involvement in our efforts. For example, our efforts at sorting out what happened this past weekend when the 23-month-old child was shot was greatly aided and assisted by the help of neighbors who wanted to get the correct information so that we could make sure that this crime gets solved. But we still have several cases of children being harmed where no one has come forward with information. Cases where many people were present, know what happened, but they've chosen not to get involved. And so I'm here today to say that we implore the citizens of our city to take a stand, to get involved, to take a stand against criminal activity in your community. Now, there's several things that we're continuing to work on to improve safety in our communities. And let me just outline a few of the things that are going on. Our community policing model is designed to forge relationships with police in the neighborhoods, and we're actually intensifying our community policing model. Chief Tarasova has also recently reinstituted the sector community meetings, the first of which was held this past Saturday, and over 100 citizens turned out for that meeting. These problem-solving workshops are designed to help everybody work together and to give the public an opportunity to voice concerns and to come up with solutions and craft solutions to the plans that have been presented. And so my message today to citizens who are listening, who will get these comments, is please get involved. Please get involved in these meetings as they come up in your communities. We're going to use reverse 911 calls for upcoming meetings to ensure that people know where the meetings are and what they're about. And we ask that you will heed that call when you receive it and go out and be a part of making your community a better place. We're going to continue to work on getting illegal guns off the street, which is a major factor in violent crime. And let me say that since the 22nd of May, our police have gotten 14 illegal guns off the street over just a 9-day period. And we've got do everything that we possibly can to close loopholes to get illegal guns off the streets. It's an effort that I've joined with over 1,000 mayors in the country in an organization called Mayors Against Illegal Guns, but this is local, and we've got to make sure that that's happening here. In June, we will be getting assistance from the state with our annual Fugitive and Firearms Initiative. Every year, the police department seizes large numbers of illegal guns with the help of area law enforcement partners. Last year, 146 weapons were taken off the street, and this effort also focuses on locating people who are accused of crimes. And then we will continue our community walks. These are door-to-door walks. I've participated in the past walks and will participate in more in the future. This provides an opportunity for us to go directly to the public, to hear concerns, to provide information, and to gather ideas. Additionally, our faith leaders remain active, working to build a sense of community and to help with healing and nurturing troubled areas in our city. And so we ask that you would please embrace these faith leaders and work with them to build better neighborhoods. Now, our efforts have been consistent in working in many ways, and thankfully, I have no doubt that these efforts are going to save somebody's life. Now, I think we all know that when it comes to crime and criminal activity, there is no instant panacea, and there never will be one. But if we work together, we can strengthen our ability to prevent rather than simply solve crimes. And one of the things I want the community to understand is that we must address these issues on all fronts. And one of the reasons that I'm focused so heavily on poverty, and Councilwoman Robertson, who is here today, who has been my partner in this endeavor, poverty mitigation and economic development strategies for the city are extremely important because we recognize in large part poverty is inextricably tied to the activity that we come here today to address. Our city is paying a heavy economic and social price for cramming poor people into concentrated areas. And so as mayor, my job is to work to steer us in the direction that will create quality of life for everybody who lives in the city of Richmond. And we're constantly working on those things that will lead to improved workforce training, job opportunities, better educational outcomes in community schools, transportation options, and the redevelopment of public housing. All of these things are preventive measures that will allow us to deal with the crime that we are facing in the city today and change the quality of life for the people who live in our city. But we've got to start right now where we are, and there are several things that individuals can do, and I ask you to do those things. To the citizens of Richmond, I ask you to do those things. Number one, I'd like to ask you to get to know the police officers who patrol your neighborhood. It's important that we have police in neighborhoods, but it's even more important that we have relationships. I'd like to ask citizens to attend those neighborhood meetings hosted by your city council representative or the meetings that are being hosted by the police department. And then I'd like to ask the citizens to talk to young people about how to conduct themselves and to encourage your local high school to invite police in to get to know the students. And so this is the message that we have for the citizens of the city of Richmond. And perhaps the most important thing is that if you see something, we want you to say something. We want you to speak up and allow us to know what information you have. Communities can be proactive, and communities must be proactive if we're going to change this paradigm. And I have the same message across the board, be it incidents involving children or robberies or incidents of any type of crime in the city. I recently met with merchants from Broad Street after the Victoria Jewelers homicide. I met with the father of the victim. I felt his grief. I saw his grief, but not only his grief, but the grief of all of the members of the community who met with me on that day. We've reached out to the families of children recently harmed, like Marty Cobbs, and I make it a point to have more direct involvement with minors when they are involved in this type of activity. These senseless acts of violence tear at the very fabric of our society. But as I tell everybody, we cannot give in. The only way we're going to succeed is if we work together, We've got to take ownership of what is happening in our streets, and we cannot allow anyone to believe for even a minute that we're going to stand for it or give in to it. And so thank you so much for being here today. And before I take a few questions, I'm going to ask the Chief to make a few remarks. Chief Tarasova.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess the most salient thing for me to say is the kind of the phrase that the mayor used: if you see something, say something. That is surely my most important message today. We're not here because there has been some extraordinary increase in crime in this city. Crime is slightly up in this city in calendar year 2014. I wish I weren't saying that. It is the nature of some of these crimes that brings the mayor here and brings me here to speak to you. It's the nature of the kind of recklessness of 3 shootings that we've had that involve children, and that gives me both pause and concern, because as we know, all 3 of those remain unsolved. We are close to the most recent, but the shooting in February on Government Road remains unsolved, and our shooting on Ambrose Street in Wickham Court on Mother's Day remains unsolved. We are trying to do as much as we can to both affect on the street that kind of crime, but affect in our communities. The mayor mentioned our jump-started fugitive and firearm initiative, because illegal firearms are a problem. They are a significant problem, and their indiscriminate use is a significant problem. We are increasing our patrols in communities that are experiencing violence. We did that over the past several weeks in both Gilpin Court and Wickham Court as a result of events that occurred. If the community needs to feel that they can rely on us and that we trust them and they need to trust us, we will continue with the kind of initiatives that the mayor mentioned. These meetings that we have are not meetings where we talk, where I give speeches. They're meetings where the community gets together to identify, analyze, and solve problems, and then analyze and evaluate their solution after the problem has been solved. Our command walks are a chance for us to get together with people. You know, it is what we try to do. I've been at this business for a long, long time, 43 years. I have served at or near the top of organizations since 1995. The support I receive from the mayor and the CAO is unique. It is unique. I have never been directed, as I am here, and by the way, I willingly do that, contact each of them at every major crime and every homicide, because it takes the guesswork away from me. I don't have to say, I wonder if the mayor or the CAO wants to know about this crime. I have been directed to contact them. We meet regularly about crime. When we meet regularly, the first thing on our agenda every time is where crime stands in the city. So I feel supported. I feel that we are supporting the community. We need the community support, and we get the community support. It is, again, we have realized a significant decrease in crime over the past 10 years. I just don't want it to stop. I am not satisfied with a 2% increase. That's 75 crimes over 4,000. I'm comfortable that we'll get back into the negative numbers before this year ends. But we need to continue to build and continue to drive things in a positive direction. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to lead this department in doing that.
Thank you, Chief. And so at this time, if you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to entertain them. Sandra?
Mayor Jones, I guess one of the biggest questions, when we're out there in the community, we hear a lot of people say that they've heard some stuff, they've seen some stuff, but they don't want to come forward. Why do you think, and I don't know if this is a question for you or for the chief, why is it that the community is not coming forward with information when a lot of times they do know what happened?
Chief?
Sandra, and that's, yes, I guess I can. That's not the norm. I mean, and I know that occurs, and I know that occurs in some communities. The truth is, the reductions we've realized over the past 10 years are driven in a large part because of community support. But if that community support starts to wane, then it's my job, it's our job, to reinstill in that community a trust of us, and that's what we're trying to do.
So what can you tell them so that they will be more trusting of the police? Because there's some kind of breakdown.
Well, I'm not sure that there's a breakdown in every community, and I'm not sure that there's a there's a pervasive breakdown. But if breakdowns occur, people need to feel the sense that they will be protected by the police department, that their information, if it is anonymously given, will remain anonymous. But the problem with anonymous information is you can't get convictions on anonymous information. We need people also, because they are responsible, as we are for their communities, to step forward and say, I saw it, he or she did it, and I'm willing to say it.
Okay, yes.
This can go for either one of you. You talked about crime being down in the city in the last 10 years, but we had obviously a very violent weekend in the city and last night, and we're at 20 homicides this year where we were at 13 last year. How do you stop it? How do you prevent these crimes? What do you do to not continue this upward trend if you're at 20 homicides this year when you were at 13 last year?
20 homicides are troublesome. They're troublesome, but they're 20 homicides. We were at 44 the year before last. If you project out 5 months into, and I don't like to do this because every homicide creates a victim. So it's not a game of numbers for me. It's not, but I understand the question. There are ways, I think, there are those who say you can't prevent homicide, that homicide's a crime of violence, a crime of passion that occurs. From our perspective, there are ways to prevent homicide, and I'll give you several examples. A, the quick arrest of those who perpetrate homicide. The quick arrest of those, so that they don't feel comfortable in committing their next homicide. Secondly, if you make those quick arrests, you cut down the potential for retaliation, and that's why we try to do both of those things. Thirdly, we encourage people to report assaultive behavior, so that at the lower level, at the simple assault level, at the aggravated assault level, we are engaging folks about their crime. All of those things go together. And getting that see something, say something, getting that message out. If you see people with guns in your community, I think the most striking thing about the Wickham court shooting, where we had a 5-year-old shot, is that there is no way, in my mind at least, that the perpetrators of that event could have nonchalantly entered that community without being detected. Somebody needs to step forward early on in the process when they see people walking the streets with guns and call the police. We were there in a matter of seconds after that event. I would have rather been there in a matter of seconds after someone reported 2 men with guns.
Laura, I think that his question also has to be looked at in the context of societal ills. I don't think that we can depend on the police department to do everything. And so there is illicit behavior that goes on in our communities. There are dysfunctional families in some of our communities who can't solve their problems without violent activity. And so that's all a part of it. And when you think about how we're going to get above beyond this, it's not just what the police can do. There are some societal issues that have to be addressed as well.
So in a city like Richmond, where resources are a constant battle, you have all of the police command staff standing behind you, but you don't have anyone from any other agencies. What are you asking of those agencies in order to combat those societal ills that we're seeing that might cause some of these issues?
Well, today we have, or yesterday, we have our first individual who's working on poverty, working full-time in the city, and dealing with some of the issues that relate to housing patterns, that relate to transportation, that relate to education. And so Thad Williamson started on yesterday his first full day. And so he's not here today, but he's certainly hard at work trying to bring forth a program that will kind of change the paradigm of some of the families in our city. But it's not just city agencies. This is something that has to be inclusive of ministers, pastors, community leaders, teachers, school systems. This is pervasive, and it's going to require not just people who are hired to get things done, but people who care. That's what's going to change the paradigm in the community.
Mr. Mayor, you spoke earlier in your opening remarks about changing the paradigm. Could you speak a little bit about how firearms figure into that? Does this city have a gun problem? You mentioned the fact that 9 or 14 were pulled off the streets in a matter of 9 days. Does the city have a gun problem?
I think that illegal guns are inextricably bound to the relationship of the rate of crime that we have in our city. And I think that as we can get guns off the street, as we can get these young people who have guns, as we can get them to surrender them or we can find them, that I think that changes the paradigm as well. Guns are a very important part of this problem. Chief?
I concur with the mayor. Guns are all cities' problems, not just the city of Richmond. The possession, the utilization, the kind of cavalier attitude that some folks take with regard to firearms is disturbing, and it creates problems because it creates an instantaneous negative solution to people's problems.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
You mentioned that you are called for major crimes, you were called on Sunday night. All of the news crews were out at that scene Sunday night. Is there a reason why we're just hearing from you today?
Well, I believe that everybody has their role to play. And I think that crime scenes are designed for the police to collect the information they need so that we can get perpetrators and solve crimes. And so I think that we all have our roles to play. I would encourage people to continue to go to meetings that relate to crime, but I'm not necessarily advocating that people rush to crime scenes because we want the police to be able to do their job.
Mayor, earlier you spoke that you had attended some of these walks, but from talking to people in the community, they feel like they don't see you out in their community enough. How many have you been a part of, and do you plan on even increasing the number of those that you attend in the next 6 months?
Not certain who you're talking to, but I've been in this community for 43 years. And I've been going to vigils and crime walks for 30 years. And I intend to continue to do that. Not only have I done that, but as a pastor for 43 years, I have felt the pain of families as I've stood over young people's remains and had to deal with that. And so I'm not just a Johnny-come-lately to this. I've been at it for a long time, and I will continue to be at it.
We talk about the community involvement that obviously helps solve crimes. We mentioned the 3 children that have gone unsolved. The arrest rate so far this year is fairly low considering years past. Do you think that the community involvement has waned? Is that why these arrests aren't happening this year?
The arrest rate is, I don't know where you get that data. We have, of this year's 20 homicides, we have closed by arrest 9 of them, and will close by arrest soon, the 10th. That's 50%. When we measure, but we don't stop investigating homicides on December 31st. So we have also closed by arrest this year 6 additional homicides that occurred previous to this year. So there have been 16 homicide arrest closures this year. We don't stop when December 31st comes and say, okay, we have a new year and we've closed 2013 homicides this year. So our rate of closure is in the 75% because that's the way the FBI has us measure them, total rate of closure versus number of homicides. There are many months left in this year to close those that have occurred this year.
All right? Yes, sir.
Chief, I have a question. I know your job is virtually impossible, really, to prevent these. And I just want to know what the headline that the people live in the communities that are affected by the violence, and what's the headline that they can take from this? Because I know a couple of weeks ago you sort of made the same vow, and like I said, it's a tough job. I mean, what do you want the people to, take away from this particular?
I'm going to steal it directly from the mayor. See something, say something.
But I have one thing to say. Police have been asking citizens to do that for years, and and citizens fear for their lives or safety, and it's a very real fear.
And I am going to continue to try to establish through all the means we described a growing trust in the community. You needed to be there Saturday to see those 100 people engaged. Councilmember Robertson was there. There was a buzz in that room because people were actively engaged in action plans, not in platitudes, but in action plans to make their communities better. We're going to continue to do that. We're going to, our second, that was our first precinct meeting, East End, the northern part of the south side. Our second meeting will be in July, covering the southern part of the south side. We're going to generate activity, we're going to generate response, and we're going to keep at it.
Chief, how do you get to the people who don't go to those meetings? Who say, I don't want my face there, or I'm scared to be seen with the police, or I don't think that meeting's going to do anything? How do you get those people?
That's why we do the community walks. When we do community walks, we don't skip doors because the door doesn't look like the folks there will be amenable to our engagement. We knock on every door. We stop every person we see on the street. So, and I, you know, you can talk about leading horses to water, but I'm going to continue to lead horses to water. I'm going to continue to provide the well.
Chief, can you talk about the drug issue in the city and how, if it does relate at all to the violent crimes that we've seen?
Drug sales, drug dealing always relates to violent crime. It's not as pervasive as it was because drug dealing has become a more sophisticated business. And yet we still have drug-related shootings. We surely have overdose deaths, and dying is dying. I'm as heartfelt about someone who dies of an overdose as I am someone who is, because it's another death. It's another senseless death. So there is a relationship between drugs and violent crime. It is not as significant as it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but it still bears significance. There are still wars over corners. They're just not as blatant as they once were.
All right, I think we're about done. Ellen, you want to say something? I know you're not on schedule, but on the.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and your staff, and certainly Chief and your staff. I was at the meeting on Saturday, and it is the opportunity of the collective community to come together. And sometimes trust building is not just having trust and faith in the police officers, but at the community level, when you have these sector meetings with citizens coming in, sitting around the table, getting to know their neighbors and knowing that they're not in this by themselves, that there's a whole community effort in the process. And in addition, as you talked about, who else do you have here besides police? Saturday, all of those support systems were there as well as the community and community representatives, the chairpersons of the civic associations, even young people, children were there to be involved and engaged in this discussion, so that we embrace this as not just, once a person has committed a crime, we are talking about what kinds of penalties there is for the crime. The idea of getting in front of this and the preventive measures, and certainly the initiative that is being taken as it relates to poverty. 2 of the young children that we've spoken of today that were shot, both of those children live in our Richmond redevelopment housing communities, where we have crammed people of poverty into an area. Drugs is a major problem. And there are other remedies for how we should deal with drugs. And we need to deal with drugs not just from the perspective of crime. We need to deal with it from a health perspective. We need to take advantage of those opportunities. The drug court system works very effective for us in dealing with the issues of what are some of the root causes of some of the reason why we have the crime. So, it is a comprehensive approach. But I want to stress also to those citizens that, may not trust the police or may be afraid to call in, call somebody you trust. Let that person be the person to take the message to the next level if you don't want to be the face on it. We've got to help ourselves in the process, and so I just want to thank the chief for your work that you do in the community, for all of your team, and you putting your lives on the front line for the community, and for all of the community that is engaged, and it is a huge community that is engaged, and for the mayor and his work and his support for some of the kinds of things that previously have not been put on the top of the agenda, like poverty, like affordable housing, like rebuilding schools in the city around diversity of communities and so forth. And all of these kinds of things collectively can make the difference that we're trying to achieve.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you all for coming. Thanks, good job.
Thank you.